New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello, this is Gina, and I am here for The Joy is in the Journey. And this show is all about helping people find a greater way to their personal joy. Who doesn't want to have a happier life? It's like a soundbite. Of course, everybody wants to be happy. And it's nice to say, well, find more things that cause you joy, but it's not always easy to find our way there. So today, I am very excited to have a wonderful guest that I consider a friend, and I also think is happy to have with me today. Someone whose best-selling book is Move Into Your Magnificence. And he truly does that and helps everyone along the way. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Reverend Dr. Bary Fleet, who for over 40 years basically he led and ministries helped people grow in amazing ways. Significant growth in attendance, fundraising, new buildings. He led local churches, but he did much more than that. He helped capital campaigns. He did anything and everything to help individuals and institutions and churches be better than they were. He was formerly an adjunct professor at Emory School of Theology, and he has all the degrees behind him, but he's the co-founder of Crossroads Counseling Center, and most recently the founder of the Institute for Inner Magnificence. And he spent over the past 30 years on faculty at Bryan and Johnson and Wales University in both psychology and sociology departments. He is also associated with the Holmes Institute for Consciousness Studies. So for those of you that aren't sure what that means, for CSL, he is not just a licensed practitioner, but he's also within CSL. He's an instructor at our school for our ministers. And not just an instructor, but he was a keynote speaker 2 weekends ago, and it was fabulous. So I know I'm saying a lot about him, and he was just an amazing man, and I'm so happy to have him. Reverend Dr. Bary Fleet, welcome, welcome.
Gina, thank you so much. It's a joy to be here, and I love your program. And as you know, the subtitle of my book is 101 Invitations to a Life of Passion and Joy. So what I bring is sort of a how-to, some things to do to step into your joy. So thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be with you.
And I always gush over you because your magnificence shines, and you do it in such a humble and quiet way. You shine, you radiate. Your life and your passion for it is exemplary, and I love that. I am someone that I am very open and upfront. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I love when I meet people that are exactly what they seem to be, only deeper and more of that. And in New Thought, we have this passion for truth And I know that you have found that same passion for truth, and you're shining your magnificence in incredible ways. I also love that you've done all kinds of different things. And I have all kinds of questions, and the hour always flies by. But I want you to tell us, the first thing I want to talk about is, of course, I'm going to bring it up here, is your book, your best-selling book, which is Move Into Your Magnificence. And this actually is 101 stories, right? Invitations, but there are 101 different stories, correct?
There are 101 different stories, and each story ends with a call to action. So instead of just reading something, it's an invitation after you read it to do something. And my tagline is, the extent to which you accept my invitation is the extent to which you'll be able to say, I feel good about being me. And my goal, my passion is for people to be able to go to bed at night and think over their day and be proud of themselves, and to be able to feel good about how they conducted themselves. Or if they look at their day and there are some things they realize they could do differently, they go to sleep thinking about how they can make tomorrow a better day because of the lessons they've learned this day. So that's what I'm about.
I love that. And I would love for you to tell people what made you decide to write a book like this.
So, as you mentioned, for 40 years, I was a local church pastor, and I would always write a weekly newsletter that would sort of be a tease for the Sunday morning lesson. And when I retired, one of the things that I missed the most was writing. And so I started writing just for myself, from the joy of writing. And then I missed having a tagline. So it kind of evolved into just my passion for writing and my observation of what I see going on in me and in people around me and in the world around me, and thinking about how to use that as sort of an object lesson and a way for people to act. Because what you and I both know is transformation doesn't come from reading, it comes from action. And we can have all of the knowledge in the world, but if we don't do something with it, it's useless. So I'm really passionate about, okay, so here's a good story, but here's what I want you to do with it. Here's what I want you to play with. And it's all about playing with it, not working with it. Because most people I know aren't looking for more work to do, but a lot of people need more play in our lives. And so it's an invitation. And I even talk about this in my book, when I would talk to my mother about this or that, and she'd say, well, Bary, I'm working on it. And I grew up with a heavy Protestant work ethic about work is what life is all about. And I used to say to her, why don't you play with it instead of working with it? It's a lot more fun. So that is kind of a rambling answer to your question.
It is, but it isn't, because it really is. That's what we're here to do, is to, witness, observe. If there's things that need to be changed, that's great. That's fine. But the truth is, we want to be here now. That's where our power is. That's where our joy is. And sometimes I know I take things too seriously. And it's not that it's not that important. It may be very important, but it doesn't change the fact that what I bring into it, if I say it's serious and this is going to be hard, it's too serious, and it was hard. So it's being mindful about my attitude walking into anything, which actually we were having that conversation right before we started, because isn't that life? Sometimes it's yes, of course, we're trying to do and be, the best version of ourselves, but we already are it. We need to get ourselves out of the way sometimes. I know for me anyway, that's part of my challenge, is just, like you said, do it in joy and be in that place of play with this, witness this. And when something shows up again, say, well, isn't that interesting? Here we go again. And just kind of, redirect, when we're in the car. And I like the idea of the rumble strip. When we're on the rumble strip, we know we need to go back into the lane a little bit. And it's not to say that we're off the road, thankfully. It's
Right.
only there so we don't go off. So that mindfulness to me is a lot like that, and being in that place of making sure that I'm not falling off and staying focused on, that center. Because when I'm using the best of me, things are easy. When I'm caught up in the story, that's when I can complicate things.
Yeah, and the good thing about the rumble strip is life wants us to live life in the fast lane, to enjoy life, to travel safely through life. And life gives us warnings. But a lot of us are so busy and so intent that we miss them. And then we end up in the ditch.
It is. It's funny when, there's just, and then you witness it and you say, okay. And hopefully we've got enough people that we've created a life around us that they'll help us out of the ditch. We
Right.
don't just have to try to wait and do it ourselves. Or we're not too stubborn, if I'm speaking for myself, too stubborn to ask for help. Because I had a conversation with someone earlier too. The more that you think you've whatever your position or whatever your title, the higher up you go, the more you think you should have already been there. I should already be able to handle this. Whatever that means, I haven't figured out yet. When I think I need to handle something better, usually I'm getting myself into trouble. Spirit to lead. I'm trying to get something done. And that's where it gets tricky.
It does. And I think a lot of us, a couple of things. A lot of us have this sense of the imposter syndrome because I spent most of my life with it. Most of my life being afraid that if people knew what I was really like, nobody would like me. And so there's tremendous amount of energy that goes into maintaining an image. And when we can let that go, and when we're okay with just being us, life is much lighter and it is much more joyful. So yeah, letting that stuff go. And when it comes to asking for help, there are a lot of us, but I also think it's especially hard for men.
In women in different ways. I think it's in two different ways. There's a perceived weakness in a woman sometimes that we think that if I ask, then I'm being weak. Whereas men, there's that macho-ness that they shouldn't need it. So
Right.
It's two different angles. And we each think that the other has it better, which I think is hilarious.
I've done some research with some college students about the hardest thing about being a man from a man's perspective and from a woman's perspective. And what the research says consistently, women's person to ask help. They're supposed to be the leader. They're supposed to know everything. And the other thing is dealing with feelings. And that's, again, kind of playing off of what you said but I think that women, it's much more socially acceptable for women to have feelings. I think that the backside of that is women's feelings get blamed on PMS or whatever else. And it kind of cuts the legitimacy of their feelings. And men kind of aren't allowed to have feelings. I'll often ask them
completely. Oftentimes they just cut them off completely.
Yeah, and I was talking with some students at the end of the semester, and I asked the women how they would feel. I said, I'll talk about you want men to be more sensitive. How do you feel about going out with somebody that cries at movies? And the joking but serious response was, as long as he doesn't cry more than I do.
Well, I'd be safe with that because I cry over Hallmark commercials. It doesn't even have to be a Hallmark commercial. I see, those reunion commercials that they're playing all the time now. 10 seconds in, I'm crying. So
Yeah.
songs, everything. So I wouldn't have to worry, but I understand what you're saying.
But if a guy were to do that, it's very off-putting in general, because the part of being a real man is dealing with your feelings, and you deal with them inwardly. You don't express them. Back in the 70s and 80s, when the women's liberation movement sort of was at its peak, some of my women friends and colleagues talked about men basically have two feelings: anger and ejaculation. That's the spectrum. But what I've noticed over the last 30 years, when I ask students to make a list of feelings, invariably women could make much longer lists in the same amount of time than men could.
Yes.
What I'm noticing is, over the last 3 decades, men's list of feeling words, their access to the vocabulary has increased.
Thank God.
Whether they express it or not, but at least they know more words. They can come up with more words to talk about their feelings. So it's moving in the right direction.
Definitely. Now I have a question. Well, I just wanted to mention when you were saying, the imposter syndrome and worrying about what everybody thinks of me. Now we all have that, and it's everyone has that bit of, what if I'm not good enough? The what ifs kind of thing too. One of the things that I heard at this point over 20 years ago, and has been a mantra to me, and I do say it almost every day in different ways: what other people think of me is none of my business.
Yeah.
If I am aligned, and I don't mean it in a glib way, if I'm aligned with spirit, and I also heard say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. So as long as I am appropriate and I am being in alignment with my highest self, it's not about what another person is thinking. Should I hurt someone? That's a completely different story. It does not give me license for that. But at the same time, it keeps me on my side of the street, because I'm not a mind reader, and I don't know what people's looks are. And I don't know that, I do know that I don't take up as much time in other people's minds as I would have allotted myself if I didn't know that mantra.
Yeah, I think Wayne Dyer gets credit for initiating that. And I actually have a story in my book about that, because I think Wayne Dyer got it a little bit wrong. I think it's really arrogant when we don't pay attention to other people's feelings or what somebody thinks of me, because sometimes what other people can do for me is shine a light on my blind spot. And so I think it's important to pay attention, but the key is to not allow ourselves to be controlled by what other people think of us. To take that in as information, to see if it fits. It may or may not, but at least to be open to, are they seeing something in me that I need to take a look at?
I don't mean it when someone says something to you. I'm talking about what people are thinking. Like, oh, if I do this, they're going to think that. If I do this, people will say or think that. Of course, if somebody comes to you, without a doubt in my mind, I need to look at that and say, is this something I need to look at? This came up for a reason. Now, there's no question about that, but I'm just talking about the mental stuff. The game that we play, that when the mind reader can, I know, I can tell from that look that they don't like me, or they're going to think that. If I do this, they'll say that, they'll do this. That whole game that, if I need to have this conversation, and if I say this, they're going to say that. How much wasted time happens in the game of what other people will think? I am not in other people's minds, and I don't need to. I know there's one mind, but I don't need to worry about their corner of the world unless it is a discussion. I mean, I certainly, as long as, like I said, it goes along with say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. So I never have the right to hurt someone's feelings or do something inappropriate. but it's also not getting caught up in, I'm not going to limit myself by somebody else's, well, they may not like it, or what will people think of me? Because it's not about what, if I know what's mine to do and I'm doing it, the greatest of not just inventors, but the people that have really been successful in life didn't do it because they did what everybody else did.
Right. And you used the key word, when we limit ourselves. And you and I were having a conversation before the show started about the stories that we make up. And a lot of us have a history of making up stories that limit us instead of expand our joy, they make our lives smaller. And it's all about creating new stories that allow us to expand, to play with things, to be in joy, and as you said, to not take ourselves so seriously. There are certainly issues that need to be taken seriously, but I don't need to take myself seriously.
Not overly, anyway. It's not in a way of, it's not to say that it's not. I need to care for myself and honor myself, and everyone, I believe, does, but it's a fine line. So, but I don't want to get away from, because I have a bunch of questions and time flies. So the other question I wanted to ask you around the book, your best-selling book, I just want to add, and for those that are just joining us, I just wanted to say again, this is Reverend Dr. Bary Fleet, and he is the author of Magnificence. And I love the fact that you spent time with Jack Canfield with this one. And he did your foreword, correct?
Correct. He has an endorsement on the back.
What was that like? What was it like to spend time with him?
It was absolutely amazing. I have been so blessed on this journey. I've been places I never dreamed I would go, but I had the opportunity of spending a couple of days at his home with a number of other authors, and we sat on the hot seat with him and got his feedback on what we were working on and thinking about and playing with, and then had a time to go into his studio and have an interview with him. And one of his teachings, by the way, I'm also certified by Jack to be a Success Principles coach under his program. And one of the things that he teaches is to never be afraid to ask for what you want. So after the interview with him, I said, Jack, what would it take for you to write an endorsement for my book? And he thought for a minute and he said, yeah, I'll do that. And so the endorsement actually comes from some things that he had to say in the interview that he did with me that I believe is up on my website. You can take a look at that if I'm not mistaken.
And I'm going to be putting up, I'll put this up again afterwards, but this has a bunch of information, so I'll be letting people know that this will be coming again, how to get a hold of you. And just towards the end of the hour, I'll put that up again so people can take a look, and has all the information on it. So that way they can reach out to you for whatever it may be. So I just wanted to, it's exciting. And you've met up with him a couple of times too, right?
I've met up with him a number of times, and it's just been an amazing experience. He is very charismatic, and for those of us from Rhode Island, I had lunch with him one day and found out that when he was doing his graduate work, he did some work with the school system in North Kingston, Rhode Island.
Wonderful.
Back when he was a graduate student pursuing his doctorate, but he's Jack, what you see is what you get.
And I love that.
That's how he is.
That's wonderful. And for those of you that don't know who Jack Canfield, you're familiar with him with Chicken Soup for the Soul. So that was one of his big endeavors. So which is impressive, because there's millions of they have, I want to say 100 titles at this point, and just amazing. And I love them because they're heartwarming, and your stories that are in your book are heartwarming, and it gives that little boost of not just joy, but also, it opens up that space, that heart space, that magnificence, as you say. But it's that I can do this, and I need to open up to. I choose to. I can. It gives that license to it. And on that note, my favorite story that you tell, or one of my favorite stories that you tell that I really appreciate, and I was so glad to hear you share with the ministerial students at the Holmes Institute at the conference. How was it to be the keynote there? Did you have fun with it?
I did have fun with it. It was an honor to be asked, and then when I got a copy of the program and I showed it to my wife, she said, "Wow, look at you." And there was a moment there of kind of intimidation and that imposter syndrome, that kind of flashback that says, "Who am I to be in this place with these people doing this?" But it was fun. It was great fun.
And everyone, it was very well received, not just that with comments of people said that day, but afterwards as well. So just know that it was amazing. So anybody looking to book someone, this is absolutely the person that I would call to motivate my group. And my favorite story, as I was saying, was you talk about moving from the athlete that nobody wants to the one that everyone wants to be. Can you please share that story? Because that is so powerful.
Yeah. So when I've always been small, well, short of stature. There was a time when I was pretty big, but I was still short. But I loved sports, but I was no good at it. I was the kid at recess when they would choose up teams. Not only would I be the last one chosen, but they would fight over who had to take me. I remember in Little League getting my uniform. I thought I was drafted into Little League. What I learned later on was I didn't make Little League. I was assigned to the minor league of Little League. It's for the people that weren't good enough to be in Little League. But I loved it. And when I got my uniform, I actually slept in it that night. And I was so proud because I got number 7, and that was Mickey Mantle's number. And I wanted to be like Mickey Mantle and hit home runs and play baseball the way he did. But I couldn't. I didn't. And then kind of put that on the shelf. I got so many messages that I wasn't good athletically. And then in my late 60s, kind of randomly scrolling through Facebook, not one of my better habits, but I came across an ad for a sprint triathlon. And I didn't realize there was such a thing. All I knew about was the Hawaii Ironman thing. So I started looking at this, and I realized that there's the Hawaii Ironman, but there's the Olympic triathlon, and then there's the sprint. And I looked at it, and it's swimming up half a mile in open water swimming. It's a 12-mile bike ride. It's a 5K trail run. And I thought, I know how to swim, and I've got a bike, and I got shoes. I can do this. And the interesting thing was when I went to the swim clinic, I had my first ever full-fledged panic attack. And it gave me a great appreciation for people that have panic attacks. The irony was the tide was out, and I could have stood up and been okay. The other irony is I was mandated by the U.S. Triathlon Association, as are all certified triathletes, to wear a wetsuit because of the temperature of the water. And when you're wearing a triathlon wetsuit, it's like a giant floaty, and you really can't sink. But what I realized I was in over my head psychologically. Like, who am I to think that I could be doing anything like this? And I was blessed enough to have a coach who believed in me. And she saw me having this panic attack, and I was relieved when I saw her approaching me. And I was expecting her to be nice and comforting and reassuring and all of that. And she got in my face and she yelled at me. And she said, "Fleet, you're a triathlete. Now swim, damn it." And it's like I got a slap in the face, and I started to swim. And I realized it was a new identity for me, because up to this point in my life, I didn't even know a triathlete. And here I am, somebody saw me as being one. And so that it sort of gave me a new identity that was far and above anything I ever imagined for myself. And as I tell in my TED Talk, that I did finish the triathlon. I finished first in my age group, and the next year, because of my age and finishing first in my age group, then I was invited by the U.S. Triathlon Association to try out to compete to represent the United States in the World Championships that in Rotterdam that year. And just to think about, so here's this kid that nobody wanted on their team, now being invited by the U.S. Triathlon Association to try out to represent the United States. And I continue to enjoy physical challenges. Some of you may or may not know about Spartan events, but I celebrated my 70th birthday by completing a Spartan trifecta at Fenway Park. And for those of you that don't know what that means, basically it's running a bleacher 5K on the bleachers at Fenway Park, doing ridiculous obstacles along the way. And I just today actually set a goal for myself. So I'm going public to celebrate my 75th birthday this November, the week of my birthday, by running my first ever marathon. So that's my story and how I made that transition from being the person nobody wanted on their team to what I've now realized is, without intending to, I've inspired lots of people to realize they have a lot more potential than they imagined themselves to.
Absolutely. And you're just amazing. I can't even fathom. I was that person that nobody wanted on their team, so I understand that completely. And I still probably would be that in any kind of athletics at the moment. Someday, maybe not so much, but for this day, I have tremendous respect for all that you've done, because you, like I said, you put yourself behind what you tell yourself you're going to do, and I can't even fathom. Going to do a marathon for that's your new goal. That's fabulous, just fabulous, but it's exciting, and that I always say may the best of your life be the rest of your life. I hear people that speak as if while they're getting older, that, oh, well, it's too late now. As a life coach, I know every day is what you make of it. Louise Hay, up until her, she was, I forget how old she was when she, like 84, but she was still learning new things. She learned how to ballroom dance and took art classes well into her 80s. She learned all kinds of new things. That's what life is all about. It's enjoying every day of it. And that's when we get old, is when we think we stop learning, when we stop exploring, when we stop living. Because old is a mindset. It's not about the years. There are people that live. My sister transitioned at 37, so there's nothing that's guaranteed. And there are people that live well into their. My Uncle Jackie was 95, and he was still going to casinos until COVID, and then he transitioned during COVID, but he lived every day of his life. That's the difference, is, are you living or are you existing? And joy is, that's why we're here. We're here to love, and we're here to be in joy. So it's really, and we have Wayne here saying AAA, awake, aware, and accountable. There you go, Wayne. And I just want to also mention, if anybody has questions for Dr. Bary, please feel free to put them in the chat. Know that we are here, and we'd love to hear them. But you really do. You talk about what you talk about, you live, and I really appreciate that.
Gina, you used a really key word when you were talking about Louise Hay. We are hardwired to experience joy when we learn something. Every time we learn something, it makes us feel good about ourselves. And every time we do something for somebody else, anytime we contribute to something bigger than ourselves, we feel good about ourselves. We're hardwired that way. And it happens universally. I can't do something for somebody else. Well, that's not true. I can be resentful. But when I do something for somebody else, or when I commit to something bigger than myself, I always feel good about myself. And it can be something as small as smiling at a cashier and making small talk when I'm checking out, or holding the door open for somebody, or one of the hardest ones for me was letting somebody merge into traffic in front of me because I have that competitive spirit. No, you're not going to. I'm going to get you. But I realized when I pull back and let somebody in front of me, that feels good. And every time I learn something, it feels good. So it is that learning and that doing and that contributing. We can't do that without feeling good about ourselves, without experiencing some level of joy.
Yes. And I also think that driving is a wonderful tool to be able to see where your mindset is, where your level of peace is. Because if you can go through traffic and if someone cuts you off, simply be in a place of saying, well, I'm glad I'm not, if I'm glad that I'm not in that much of a hurry, and wish them well and wish them safety, then I'm in the right space.
Yeah.
But if I'm like swearing in my mind or out loud, then I'm not in the right space. And that has nothing to do with them. That's always about me. One of the things Louise Hay also said was she would get in her car and she would bless everyone on the road. Before she even started the car, she would bless everyone on the road. And as she drove, she blessed everyone on the road. And I thought, what a wonderful practice that is. I had an old fisherman, a friend of mine, that he used to always say, he used to be awful with road rage. And he said, then he adapted when someone did something, he'd pray for them. And he'd say, that guy needs a prayer. And he'd say it, gritting his teeth until he, and then he knew that by the end of the prayer, he felt better. It was never about that guy,
Right.
And these are the tools that we get. These are the practices that we get to live in not just a higher vibration, but these are those, what I call my rumble strips. When I can be in that place of saying, okay, what's going on with me? You know?
And that's the question. What's going on with me?
It's never anyone else. It's always my reaction to life, not life itself. And even when big things or seeming big things happen, it doesn't mean that we don't have the right to feel whatever it is we feel. But am I acting or reacting? Am I coming from a place of love or coming from a place of fear or anger or resentment? Because none of that ever serves me, ever.
So when I'm working with my clients, I remind them there's no such thing as a wrong feeling. Feelings are information. That's they're the rumble strips. And when there's an uncomfortable feeling or a bad feeling, it's life inviting us to take a look at what's going on with me that I'm depriving myself of joy in this moment. And when I am in the midst of joy, I know there were a lot of people last night that were trying to look at the full moon. We tried last night, and the cloud cover got in the way. But when we are in those moments of joy in nature, or seeing a beautiful painting or artwork, or listening to beautiful music, and we feel that joy, that's kind of the rumble strip that says, yeah, this is how life is supposed to feel. Keep doing this, and keep having that experience. This is what you're supposed. This is how life wants you to be. So as I said, the feelings aren't wrong; they're just information.
Absolutely. Now, please tell us about your TED Talk. I've seen it. I love it. I would love for you to tell people about your talk and what I know also for people to just make sure that they know they can go onto your website, which I'm going to give later, and that will give them that, they'll be able to, get your information how to get there right from your website. But tell us about your TED Talk.
So for years in teaching psychology, when I would teach the humanistic aspect of psychology, I would sometimes literally hold up an acorn, or sometimes just hold up an acorn and ask people, hold up space and imagine people that I had an acorn there, and acknowledge that that acorn has the potential, everything in it, it's already there to be the most magnificent oak tree you can imagine. And I saw that as an analogy for all of us. We have in us all that we need to become the most magnificent person we can imagine. But what has happened to us, and with the acorn, what's going to make the difference is the environment, the soil, the light, the moisture, the nutrients, the space to grow. What happens to us as people is when we're 2 years old, we know that we're magnificent. You give us a bath towel and a couple of diaper pins and put that on our shoulders, and we're running around and we're Superman or Superwoman. We're superheroes and we could do anything. But there was a study at the University of Iowa that showed that the average 2-year-old gets told the word no over 400 times a day. Well, when you think about what the average 2-year-old is doing, they're just being the average 2-year-old, exploring life, having fun, experimenting, being curious. And when I get told no 400 times a day, every day, then it ends up that I think there's something wrong with me. And so I start putting layer after layer of covering over myself to be what I think the world wants me to be instead of what I thought I was. So the funny thing is, when I saw the advertisement that Bryant was looking for speakers for a TED Talk, I went through the application process, and it's a very stringent vetting process that they go through before people are chosen and given the opportunity to present. And one of the pieces of advice I got was watch lots of TED Talks, watch lots of TED Talks. And one night, it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was going through TED Talk after TED Talk, and I see some guy in Florida holding up an acorn to start his TED Talk. And I thought, no, he took it. He took it. And he did something very different with it. But I didn't want to leave myself, here's, thinking about what other people are going to think. I didn't want other people to think I had stolen his idea. And I went upstairs and I said to my wife, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. The whole thing was predicated on an acorn. And she said, Bary, look in your nightstand. You've got a geode. That's your object. Everybody in us has a unique beauty, a unique magnificence. On the outside, we look like a rock. We look ordinary. And a lot of people look at us and see our ordinariness, and we look at us and we see our ordinariness. But somebody, a geologist, can look and say, no, there's something magnificent in here. Let's crack it open and see. So that was sort of the evolution of the analogy about we are like geodes. We're full of magnificent beauty. We just don't know it. And it takes somebody that knows more about us than we sometimes know about ourselves to crack us open, to connect us with what's already there, to reconnect us with that joy for life that we had when we were 2. And to know it's okay to be playful and to be experimental and to just be free. So that's kind of where it all went. And what my invitation at the end of the TED Talk, if you watch it, is I ask people in the audience to turn and look at each other. Turn to the right and look at the eyes of the person on your right, and see their magnificence. And turn to the person on your left and look at them and see their magnificence. And know that while you were doing that, there were 2 people looking at you and seeing your magnificence. And so my invitation is for those of us that are in touch with our magnificence to make it our mission, our passion, to look at people around us and to see not their ordinariness, but their magnificence. So that's the invitation that I would leave for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Neil had just commented on he just wanted to comment, great point on how is this informing me and working for me, on the point that you had made as far as the information when we're just witnessing it. And he also said, in every seed is the promise of a great forest.
Yes.
And each individual is that promise. And it's whether or not, I always look at it, I use the analogy a lot of a baby. and I say, when you held, whether it's your child or whether it's sometimes we have younger siblings or a niece or a nephew, and you hold this infant that is absolutely precious, and you're holding them and you're looking at them and you're seeing the full potential of divine in their eyes. They can be a doctor, or they could be a minister, or they could be anything they wanted, from a movie star to a ball player. They could be a ballerina. They could be anything at all in life. The world is at those little bitty fingertips, and just pure love and knowing that you would do anything for this child, and knowing that people did that of you, that you were held and loved and honored that much, and that it is up to us to honor ourselves in that way, that nothing went away, that child has no less or more potential than each individual. So when we look in the mirrors, we need to know that is that same potential that is in that infinite little baby. People knew it of us, and I know it of each one. And that's where, I love our practices. I love the tools of New Thought, Science of Mind in general. But it's so important that we really, that we hold to that too. We really are aware of our own magnificence. And like you said, the geos, it's inside. Our magnificence is on the inside. If our society spent a fraction of the time on kindness as it does on beauty tips, we'd have a beautiful society. So it's being mindful of that. If we spent a fraction of the time honoring people in our lives, as opposed to, griping about whoever, it'd be a very different world. There was a question here. That was one of the ones that he had said. Here it is. Wayne wanted to know, what amps up your faith in oneness?
So I had a conversation with my men's group Sunday night. We're talking about, in our men's group, I host a men's mastermind on the hero's journey every Sunday night. And we're talking about the warrior part of us. And
I'm going to put in a commercial for it before you finish that. The hero's journey is the age-old story about the ordinary man who hears a call from somewhere deep within, challenging him to go out into the world and be fully alive, slaying the dragons of self-doubt and mediocrity, equipping himself with the skills and the resources to emerge victorious, and ultimately returning home with confidence and vision of making the world a better place for all. So that's your heroes group that you work on. It's a men's group. And I love that because there's not enough out there. Like you were talking about, it's about coming together and knowing that there is some place for men that can go and really be their magnificence. So I just wanted to put that out there because I think it's that important. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So to get back to Wayne's question, the conversation was about what is it that allows somebody, and this specific incident was a car was in an accident and a person was trapped inside, and a fire had started, and there was a concern that the car was going to explode with the person trapped inside. And this one individual started yelling at other people about what they need to be doing to help, while he ran to the burning car and put his life at risk to get the person out. And I said, that's the perfect example when at some level we are all one, because that's me rescuing me in the burning car. That's me asking for help. That's me mustering resources. And anytime we choose to put ourselves in danger, the reason we do that is because we're aware of our oneness. We do that because of our connectedness. And so it's stories like that amp me up and realize and so I take a story like that, I become inspired by that story. And it's just another reminder that in the ordinary times, we're still all one. And one of the spiritual practices, when you're talking about driving, and that has I've come a long way on that. I used to get really irritated when somebody would cut me off, and I would make nasty gestures and say nasty things, and my wife would very kindly tap my arm and say, "Child of God, child of God," and I would say, "Yes, child of God, masquerading as a real jerk." But to the spiritual practice of looking at behavior like that and saying, "There I go again, being a jerk. There I go again, being mean and angry," and watching other people's behavior and the behavior that we would normally judge negatively, and to realize I do that too.
So important.
And when I have that, I really believe that life mirrors us. And when, going back to feelings, when there's something about somebody that we don't like, that irritates us, it's really the universe saying, "Bary, you're looking at a part of you that you don't like. What is it you're seeing that you don't like?" Or when I find myself being really attracted to somebody, it's, "Bary, you have that in you too. What would it take for you to really like that part of you? What would it take for you to know and embrace that part of you that you're so attracted to outwardly?" So that's a spiritual practice that helps me realize our oneness. Wayne, I hope that helps.
And I want to, because time is flying by, I just wanted to make sure people know that Reverend Dr. Bary is available for assistance on your personal journey as well, not just in consulting and coaching, but he's facilitating the weekly men's mastermind group based on the hero's journey, and also he's an inspirational speaker and trainer and coach. And, he's helped so many people, individuals and families, move into their respective inner magnificence. And his website is Dr. Bary, and it's Bary with one R, everyone. drbaryfleet.com. His email is Bary, again, one R, at drbaryfleet.com. And his phone number is there as well. So it's just really, if this is the way to get a hold of him, again, his website is drbaryfleet.com. So just really know that, this is definitely someone that can help on many different levels. And I wanted to make sure I put that out there. But also I wanted to mention that you have something exciting coming out. I am very much looking forward to this. This is an online program. Tell us about this.
So this is an online program. It'll be a video program that you can purchase and go through at your leisure. It's designed so that you can either start at the beginning and go through to the end, or you can jump in the middle, anything that looks especially interesting to you. But there's 7 sections: moving into your day, moving into your thoughts, your actions, your regrets, your environment, your goodness, and your truth. And in each of those 7 segments, there are 4 different videos, 4 different stories, 4 different invitations for ways to help you move into your magnificence in those different facets of life. And there's also a special bonus module, I call it For Men, or the Man in Your Life. And the 3 videos that will be a part of that are, for men, have a hero, be a hero, and remember it's okay to cry. So I'm recording that. I've got an appointment to be in the studio the end of June, and hope that by the end of the summer, that program will be out, that you can purchase, and you can work through it and play with it at your leisure. And it comes not only with what's that turn out to be, 31 videos, but I've created a playbook to go with it. Not a workbook, but a playbook. So that there's invitations for action that you can play with and journal about as you as you move into your magnificence. And one of the things that I read the other day that I really like the image is it's not about the big things that we do, but it's the accumulation of the small things that we do. And somebody invited me to think about, imagine a painting. A painting doesn't just appear. There are thousands of brush strokes that go into the painting. And it isn't the big, I mean, yes, there are big things that we can do, but it's the accumulation of all of those little things that makes our painting, the picture of us, so magnificent and so beautiful. So, yeah, I'm really excited about putting this into people's hands. And it, as it said, it roughly parallels certainly the themes of the book.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So I also wanted to just say thank you. Neil said that the world needs our teachings, and thanks to both of us for bringing it to the people. So thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
And Neil, thank you for being here.
Yes. And I love having, I really do. I love having you on here as a guest. Thank you so much for being here. This hour has flown by as I knew that it would. Is there anything else that you'd like to say and just share with people?
No, I want to talk just a minute about the men's mastermind group on Sunday nights.
Mm-hmm.
Please be in touch with me if you have any interest in that. But it is based on the hero's journey. And every quarter we have a different aspect of the hero, the magician, the lover, the warrior, the king. And every month has a different focus on that. And every week is yet a different focus. And again, it's all about action. We always end our sessions when we each make a commitment to take one bold action from the heroic perspective. Because I think that everybody needs a hero in your life. And I want the men to be the heroes in their own story. I want that for women too. But women have lots of other resources. I think there's not as many resources for men right now. And as I did my research, I found out a lot of the books about helping men move into their masculinity were written by women.
Yeah.
And I think it's time for men to model for other men and to join together to be the best versions of ourselves, to be the heroic versions of ourselves instead of the victim versions of ourselves and the dead versions of ourselves. So if you have any interest, please get in touch with me. I'll be glad to talk to you about what's involved and how that works. The other thing that I'll say, Gina, for those of you that are listening today, if you will get in touch with me and tell me that you were here today, I'll be glad to do a free 30-minute coaching session.
Wow.
So yeah, just acknowledge, get in touch with me, say that you were here, that you saw the show with me. You saw this show with Gina, and you'd like to take advantage of that, and I'll be happy to make that happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And just mentioning the joys in the journey, and then there you go. You get
there you go.
Session. And again, you can reach him. The website is drbaryfleet.com, and it's 1R, and there is only one of you. You are magnificent, and I thank you so much for being here. Definitely a blessing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Come back when you're all set over the summer. You'll have to come back and let us know all about. I can't wait to hear more about your new online program. Very excited for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. And before we do, just a couple of things. Thank you so much. We'll see you I will see you soon, Dr. Bary. And I wanted to just mention that if you wanted to reach out to me with either ideas of shows or topics that you want covered, know that I'm here, Gina at believein.youtoday.com. You can reach me. I also want you to, it's ntmedia.org. This show is here because of people like you. This entire station is because of your donations. So if you've received anything, please know to reach out to ntmedia.org. We are here because of your kindness and support. So whatever you have, whether it's 5 or 50, or whether it is a monthly donation, we also do that. We appreciate it, knowing whatever you give out always comes back multiplied. And thank you again for being here. I really do appreciate it. And remember to reach out to Dr. Bary for your free session. If there's any questions or anything for me, remember, just reach out to me. And just, I love you and I honor you. I see you and I am for your joy. And I know that Spirit is for your joy. So have fun. Be your best and most joyful self. Celebrate as I am celebrating you. Have a magnificent day.